then we're going to start the storytelling on our today's event, which will be followed in parallel by a technical demonstration of the specific searches. As usual, great to see that we have people from all across the world and from all across the wide spectrum of walks of life within research, investigations, and intelligence industry specifically. So I believe we can start now. Our today's topic is related to corporate cases, specifically to white-collar crime and phenomena such as revolving doors, embezzlement, conflict of interest, and everything that has to do with that. This will be accompanied, as I said, with the demonstration of a process of searching and merging and looking into patterns within data objects. And as has become customary with our webinars, for those of you who are new to our company, who are new to interacting with us, and who are not familiar with our products, our methodologies for using those products, and our inner knowledge base, we will start with a simple example, two simple examples, and go on further, gradually increasing the complexity of looking into an individual based of their personal data, which can be an input in all sorts of research, including the one that is mostly related to our today's topic. So here as the initial input, we have a phone number of a person, which we further proceed to enrich, meaning get other data points that we can get from publicly available sources based on this single piece of data. And this already gives us a rich source of data, which is a social media profile, which is specifically Facebook. We are doing this with the help of what is called a machine. It is called so within Maltego. Within other types of intelligence software, there are its analogs that let the analyst perform even a second-degree automation of repetitive ways of searching for anything. For instance, if we are looking into a company and we can check it up in several sources that are available, several sources about which we know, or we can automate this in a way that further metadata of that information is also extracted. So what is the first thing that we do within this type of logic? From a social media profile containing a name and a face, many of you may have guessed right, that would be to use our facial recognition features to run a cross search for the individual's presence within other platforms, which is what we are doing now. And another feature that we have recently added, which may be quite useful even in cases where it might be somewhat unexpected, is Facebook marketplaces. So it may be of value for us to know that an owner of a specific account has been selling or sold a certain item at a certain point in time with a certain location specified, such as with Mr. Haase here. We can see those items, and that Weissenberg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Bayern, also known as Bavaria in Germany, being the primary location for all of those items being sold. So further, we have two other social medias, one of which is a professional communication platform, LinkedIn. And we see that the individual is stated to be a junior consultant at Roland Berger strategic management consulting firm. And from this, we can further look into the specifics of that profile, who has perhaps endorsed the individual, indicating a connection that they share, what are the individual's posts, and potentially more interesting, what are the posts they have commented on or liked, and who are the people offering them. From each of the companies, we can also run additional searches, which can be detail extraction or which can be current employees and past employees, which is especially valuable, I believe, when we're talking about instances of revolving doors cases. Now, building social graphs based on content is something that we will not explore today, but something that we do place an emphasis on. This is a strongest point of us, well, one of the strongest points at this moment as a company and as a software provider. And the basic principle of that is that while getting the friends or followers or any other form of that connection within a social media platform is valuable, what can potentially be more insightful is seeing if there is a pattern of people communicating with other specific people or sets of people. And that means that here we have the posts that this person has interacted with in various ways, and we can extract their offers to see if there will be something repetitive or if that person will be from one of the organizations, one of the companies that are the subject of our research. Now, this is a more full example where we can see entities shared by owners of several accounts, which are universities, as stated within LinkedIn, which are the broad locations, and which are the companies. And another source that is quite similar to LinkedIn that we can work with by that principle is Xing, although it is much more common to be used by people in Germany and the Benelux countries. And the same type of procedures is repeatable from each of those accounts that we have seen within that platform. Yes, I see already a question about detecting hate speech. Yes, that's applicable to all text content shared across the spectrum of the SM social media platforms that we work with in depth. Now, another simple and widely met input is an email address. This one belongs to one of the original developers of Bitcoin, one of the original members of the Bitcoin Foundation, Gavin Anderson. And we are enriching it in principle similar to what we did with the phone. And while it is not always the case, that depends very much on the specifics of the person, on their approach to their digital behavior, on their approach to OPSEC, of course. But in quite many instances, we can get a lot, as we do here. And in another set of instances, we can get 1 or 2 points of data that may be critical to progressing in the research further. Yes, we see that there seems to be an issue sometimes with logging into our webinars. Thank you very much for that feedback. We will try our best to improve that aspect. So returning to what we have here within the graphs, another question. What is the machine you are using? Have we built that specifically? The two machines that I have used so far with the phone and with the email, they are both part of the standard product license. So within Maltego, for example, Mr. Royal of Temming, many years ago, has written some machines. From what I understand, he was the author for network footprinting and, for example, for gathering PDF files and further extracting metadata and emails of domain names. And Maltego's core functionality without any extensions is very much accented on network infrastructure. So we decided we needed something that matches more the types of product operations for our clients, and that would be working with social media and working with identifiers that can lead to social media, as well as working with company names. So this should be available to you if you are already a user. If not, then we highly encourage you, of course, to become one. In a few minutes, I may briefly show how those look. For those of you that don't know, they are built in the Maltego scripting language, the documentation for which is publicly available, and it does not really take significant developer skills. So coming back to what we see here, this one script lets us gather accounts with photographs and aliases and full names across Gravatar, Flickr, GitHub, Skype, this Google ID with reviews, which is another useful potentially feature that we have, where we see the reviews that a person may have left for certain venues and the timestamps and the GPS stamps of those, which is not the same as triangulation, obviously, but it can be helpful in determining if there is a pattern of an individual frequenting a specific place or being active online within a certain country or region. So here we can determine by what we see from Mr. Gavin Anderson that, of course, out of the 4, 3 were in the United States. Out of those 3, 2 were in Portland, United States. And the one that is not in the US was specifically in Potsdam in Germany. Also, there is a list of platforms where an account is registered with this email that we do not see specifically, but that may lead us to an attempt to run searches from an alias or from a name on those platforms. And even by themselves, they can tell us something about the individual, about how they operate, about what are their interests, and further. So in terms of working with corporate sources, here the input is related to 2 entities. One of those was a large incident of embezzlement of government development funds in Malaysia, of the widely known 1MDB case, which was facilitated, as it is believed, by the then Prime Minister of Malaysia, Mr. Najib Razak, and the production of the famous film Wolf of Wall Street, which is a comic artistic representation of part of the topics to which this webinar is dedicated. So there were people who were managing the production of the film within a company which was at that moment not really widely known for being related to specifically successful and resonant filmmaking, Red Granite Pictures. And on their board, the main person in Red Granite was the producer Joey McFarland, but two other people were Riza Aziz, who is a stepson of Mr. Najib Razak, and Mr. Joe Low, who was a Malaysian businessman and is currently a fugitive, as some people believe, in one of the Asian countries. There has even been an instance of a photograph being openly shared of that person in a restaurant with suspicion that it's this individual who was very much part, as it is believed, of this embezzlement case. So what can we do with names and what can we do with company names? There are multiple data sources, multiple registries in each jurisdiction that are quite relevant, and through those it will in most instances take the person to do that type of thing manually. In our instance, a very universal gatherer is open corporates. Well, a very universal source to be gathered from. And additionally, that is the British Companies House. With Britain's economic position in the world, it is relevant in cases related to many jurisdictions, as well as ICIJ offshore leaks with Panama, Paradise, and Pandora Papers, Sanctions Explorer, and OCCRP Aleph. Yes, I see another question. Thank you for that. I think we'll be answering that closer to the second half of today's event. So whenever we get an output in the form of a company officer or a company entity, we can further extract the metadata from that, meaning what are the known physical addresses and what are the known affiliates of that enterprise. Which is what we are doing now. And here specifically, the source that would be connecting all of our input entities would be OCCRP Aleph. And it is also quite useful whenever an analyst starts a research to first initially go into the knowledge that has already been covered by other analysts before, which is often quite abundant. So we will now run that. Yes, this will be uploaded to YouTube. And here we start to see some objects that intersect between more than two of those people. And those would likely be the more relevant to delve into outside of the software. So here we see Malaysia Development Berhad, among other things, between all three of those Malaysian gentlemen. And between two of them and between the American producer Joey McFarland, we see some other additional documents within the datasets of OCCRP Aleph. Now, whenever we want to assess an organization on more layers, on more levels than just those types of data aggregators and country-specific registries, we can do so in a range of domains, not meaning network objects, but domains similar to the meaning of domains of knowledge, which can be specified social media searches. This example is related to the National Bank of Uzbekistan, not in the context of any resonant negative case, but rather as an example of exploring the digital footprint of an org in a logic similar to doing so, but in a slightly another way than exploring the digital footprint of a person. So there would be narrowed down specified social media searches. There are, of course, the simple Google Docs for various types of file extensions and various types of combining and excluding keywords and specifying a certain period, specifying the domain from which we're extracting that and further. Those are simple, but as practice does show, in cases of many specialists, quite useful. And it can be done from within this interface as well, as we can see. Now, further, that would be the social media posting activity within a certain radius from physical objects, which can be production buildings and facilities, office buildings, or potential personal residences of people. That can be the layer of the domain and network infrastructure. For instance, that basic Maltego machine, the results of which can further be extended by a more segment-oriented software, where we are gathering corporate emails and PDF files similar to what we did with Google just now. And that can be querying into social media and search engine machines with different variations of names referencing the company to tell us whether there is any recurrent public discussion around them, and if so, what is the context and what is the tone of voice in that discussion mostly. Which is where it would be useful for us to further go to sentiment analysis, to which we will return closer to the end of this initial demonstration. No, the results were not preloaded. We are just waiting for sometimes for the transforms to fully load, and no, the names and emails were not made up. They are publicly available and verifiable, as is everything that we're obviously working with here, because this is mostly centered. This is centered basically around OSINT. So instances of enriching data can go beyond researching an individual and into more into the domain of doing so and then merging those results to see whether there is a specific connection between people or groups of people. Now here we have several individuals. Our second example was related to a Bitcoin developer, and those are the other employees of Bitstream and people who were active in the cryptocurrency community, such as the subreddit for Bitcoin or the widely known web resource called Bitcoin Talks that were dedicated to those topics. There is a hypothesis about the actual identity of the person calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto to be the US computer scientist Hal Finney. There is another less widely spread hypothesis about that individual, in fact, being another US computer scientist, Adam Back, Adam3US, who we can see here. There are several points that reinforce that hypothesis in the total sum of those, such as, for example, Bitcoin being written in C++, and this person being at a very professional level with that, and such as this person being the most frequently cited in the reference, academic reference section in the original Bitcoin white paper, and them being quite active on editing and commenting materials on Wikipedia and in participating in the life of the community and the discussion of the identity of the supposed Satoshi Nakamoto. And other types of reinforcements could be the connections that they have to specific people through communities such as Telegram, and the character of those communities, which we will go through in a minute. So now we're still waiting for the full results from all of the emails. And after that, we're going to start making second-degree connections between those people in the group based on those results. Now, the first thing that we can actually call something close to a cluster is a set of groups, some of which are mutual between our initial inputs, and some others having connection in terms of being administered or owned by the same people. One of those is the Whale Club. Whales are, well, it's quite obvious what that is in the context of the cryptocurrency world, where Mr. Beck is a member, as well as some other users, one of them being one of the former administrators of the Bitcoin subreddit. And it's important to note that Mr. Beck, at the peak of the heat of the discussions around the supposed identity of the creator of Bitcoin and the implementer of the cryptocurrency concept, which was formulated already at, well, to a degree at that point in time, has stated to not owning any major amounts of cryptocurrency. So now another thing that is may sometimes be less obvious, but that we can go through is GitHub. See if there is an intersection of people having activity within the same repositories, or being in the same GitHub organizations, or starring the same repositories, or somewhat more basic, of course, having intersection in the people that they follow within that platform. And when we get those, we can deepen that by seeing who are the key contributors and subscribers. So quite similar to working with content in Facebook or in LinkedIn. And another thing that is common between many of those people is the company block stream. From which we will now get very specific LinkedIn accounts and see what is the intersection there. Now, I believe my colleague is going to launch a poll, which we highly encourage all of you, of course, to participate in a few moments from now. And we can have a brief Q&A. And after that, I will try to show a bit more cases specifically with the NLP implementation. So I will also be answering the questions now. How fast is the ChatGPT implementation and how many queries are available? There isn't a specific limit to using ChatGPT implemented within our software, but the daily limit of the queries for social links is 3,000, which is more than most customers tend to use up within one day. My question is, how can it be able to cover all areas of research and not just one? Like, for example, KELA, which is dedicated to data leakage on the dark web. Due to the universality of the methods applicable to the sources, which we would mostly be talking about, that would be the main answer, of course. So waiting for further questions from your side. And after that, we will go into examples focused on sentiment. Okay, so we can progress further to that. And as is common for demonstrating those types of cases, let's use keywords and hashtags that will be centered around organizational entities. So first, we will run a search from hashtags to briefly show how ChatGPT works. This is not based on ChatGPT. This is based on what? This is based on us querying the social medias. And we will look for tweets from those keywords. This can result, of course, as this is a broad input in some false positives. Let's start with those first 50 tweets. And extract the text within it to further assess the tone of voice within them. While those are loading, I'll be answering some of the questions. Can this OSINT be used for non-professionals, such as for searching information about a friend that one hasn't seen in a while? Yes, certainly it can if you would want to do that. But if we are talking about more simple kind of operations, then an automated industrial tool would, of course, make some of it easier, but at the same time, in the specific use case that you stated right now, probably doing this manually would be sufficient. If we're looking at this specific message, then we can see the key topics that ChatGPT has gave us and the object-specific sentiment. It may not contain some type of strong words, which is why it is evaluated as more or less neutral. We can further look into the replies and the reposts and the mentioned profiles within each specific piece of content. And see whether those people have a pattern of posting things related to the topic and assess the tone of voice in that. And this is a result of us working with 50 tweets at a time. And this gave us output, of course, in the topic, in the domains of trading and investment and the cryptocurrency group, meaning group of objects intersecting and related to that. And if there is an instance of negative sentiment, then we can look into that and further see what were the original posters and what conclusion we can make. So now, again, onto the questions. Are there any modules related to email search? No, not at this moment. Thanks a lot for complimentary words. Also great to have you here today. And yes, social links works for Maltego and for I2, and we have actually at this moment developed our own independent intelligence tool that you can try if you would want. It is called Social Links Crime Wall. There's a lot of data about people. Are there any legal problems in that respect? Everything that you have looked at is publicly available information. Is just that more data, well, more correctly, publicly available data. More data is publicly available than one might think initially. And more things can be done with that data to manipulate it in different ways to further draw conclusions from it than is widely perceived. So if you are working with what is publicly available, in most instances, there would not be any type of we don't hear about those negative consequences often. I'm not a lawyer, would not advise on that. Yes, certainly. But if you would want to contact us, there is the email that I'm writing right now to the chat. That is if you want perhaps assistance with any specific case, and if you would want to look at our software, then there is another email. Now, I believe we can consider this session concluded. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and wishing you a good remainder of the week ahead. And looking forward to see you on our future webinars.